Welcome, my wide-eyed horror kitties, to another one of 3AM's darkest tales. This month, we're diving into stories from the incredible heroes of healthcare, doctors, nurses, and caregivers who face life and death every day. Being a nurse isn't easy. 12 to 16-hour shifts, handling around 20 patients at once, all while being surrounded by the heavy energies of the sick, the dying, and even those who don't realize they've already passed on. Their only relief comes when their shift ends, and they can finally head home. But what if the journey home isn't as peaceful as they hoped? After their shift ends, all they want is a quiet walk home. But what happens when that journey takes a dark and unsettling turn? In this tale, The Shortcut, an ICU nurse, on a familiar path home, stumbles upon something that will make you question what really lingers in the shadows. What did he encounter on that dark, narrow alleyway? And why is this story one that will stay with you long after the lights go out? Dare to listen if you're brave enough to find out.
The beeping machines and the antiseptic smell are as familiar to me as my own heartbeat. The job is tough, but it's something I've learned to manage, or so I thought. Tonight, after a particularly draining shift, I took my usual shortcut through the alleyway that runs from the hospital, perched high on the hill, down to the main road. This narrow path, flanked by overgrown foliage and shadowed by the night, was a route I'd taken countless times. But tonight, something felt different, almost unsettling. The alley seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and the usual sense of familiarity was replaced with creeping discomfort. As I walked past the small plot of land overrun with vines and brambles, I began to hear it, a faint, playful laughter. It was strange, almost too vibrant for the desolate area. There shouldn't be any children out here at this hour. The only nearby sources of potential noise were a small preschool and a church on the other side of the alleyway. But it was late and there were no classes in session. I was all alone in that area. The alley itself was cloaked in darkness, illuminated only by the dim, flickering street lamps. The laughter grew louder as I moved deeper into the alley, a sound that felt increasingly out of place. It was a chilling, ethereal giggling that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The air was damp, with the smell of decay mixing with the faint, earthy aroma of the overgrown lot. I was overcome with a sense of dread, picking up on something that my rational mind couldn't explain. As the laughter crescendoed, I noticed the shadows around me seemed to writhe and stretch as if animated by the sound. The alley felt like it was closing in, the sense of something watching me growing stronger. I quickened my pace, trying to ignore the unsettling realization that something was profoundly wrong. By the time I reached the end of the alley, the laughter grew into an overwhelming chorus. It felt like it was clawing at my sanity. The streetlights of the main road flickered in the distance, and I rushed toward them, desperate to escape the invisible horrors behind me. When I finally reached home, I was still trembling, my heart pounding as I unlocked the door. The house was quiet. Everyone had gone to bed, save for the soft shuffling sound coming from the living room. It was my great-grand-aunt, a woman in her late 80s who had occasional episodes of wandering at night. She was pacing back and forth, a look of concern etched on her wrinkled face. I asked if she had eaten anything, trying to keep my voice steady as I noticed the untouched plate of dinner on the table. She shook her head, her eyes clouded but sharp with worry.
The sound of you opening the door just now. Did something happen? Are you all right?
She asked. I hesitated, but then nodded. I couldn't keep anything from her. She seemed to have a great sense of things despite her old age. I quickly prepared a light meal for us both, trying to calm my nerves. As we sat down at the table, I recounted the events in the alley, the eerie laughter, the feeling of being watched. Her expression grew serious, and I could see a flicker of recognition in her eyes, her voice trembling slightly.
That place has a sorrowful history. It was a grave site during the war. Babies, children, they were killed and buried there when the town was under attack.
I felt a chill run down my spine as she spoke. Her voice carried the weight of years, the echoes of stories passed down through generations. The laughter, the feeling of dread, it all made sense now, in a horrifying way.
Back in my day, people saw things there, heard things.
She continued, her eyes distant, as if recalling a long-buried memory.
Strange occurrences like what you described. It's as if those poor children are still there, trapped in that place, playing their games, unaware that the world has moved on without them. It seems their little souls have never left.
I swallowed hard, my appetite gone. The weight of her words settled heavily in the room. The alleyway, once just a shortcut, was now a place of restless spirits, a reminder of a tragic past that still lingered in the present. After dinner, I helped my great-grand-aunt back to her room, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night, sleep was elusive, my mind replaying the events over and over. The next day, I took a different route to work, avoiding the alley. The thought of those ghostly children laughing in the dark is something I never want to experience again.
Well, my wide-eyed horror kitties, wasn't that a walk to remember? Thanks for tuning in to another tale from 3 a.m.'s Darkest Tales. If you found this story as chillingly wonderful as I did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Unless, of course, you prefer sleeping soundly. We wouldn't want that. Your support keeps these eerie stories coming, and we wouldn't want you to miss the next one, would we? Stay strange, stay spooky, and until next time, thanks for keeping it delightfully creepy with us.